borrowed ambition. Stop living a life scripted by your feed. They told you to dream bigger, but they never told you whose dream you were chasing. Look at your life carefully. The goals, the routines, the aesthetic, the hustle, the obsession with productivity, the fake calm, the forced confidence, the carefully curated identity. How much of it is actually yours? Because in 2026, most people aren't living anymore. They're performing. Every morning begins with a scroll, and before your brain even wakes up, your identity is already being rewritten by algorithms designed to shape desire itself. You don't discover ambition anymore. You download it. One video tells you success looks like waking up at 5 a.m. Another tells you it's remote work in Bali. Another says real men build startups. Another says peace means disappearing into the mountains. Another says wealth is quiet luxury and black coffee in minimalist apartments. And slowly, without realizing it, you become a collage of strangers, a human mood board. You think you're building yourself, but you're just stitching together fragments of people the algorithm rewarded. And the terrifying part? It works because the modern feed isn't random anymore. It's precision-engineered psychology. It studies your loneliness, your insecurity, your fantasies, your envy, your fear of being ordinary. Then it feeds you an identity optimized for engagement. Not truth, engagement. And eventually you stop asking, what do I want? Instead you ask, what would look impressive if people saw it? That question destroys lives. Because now your ambition is no longer internal, it's theatrical. You don't want mastery. You want the appearance of mastery. You don't want peace. You want the aesthetic of peace. You don't want purpose. You want content. That's why so many people achieve goals and still feel empty. Because deep down, they know the life they built was never truly theirs. Imagine climbing a mountain for 10 years, only to realize someone else chose it. That is modern existence. People are exhausted not because they work too hard, but because they are carrying ambitions their soul never asked for. Look around. How many careers today are chosen from genuine curiosity? How many hobbies are authentic? How many people suddenly became entrepreneurs, creators, digital nomads, or self-improvement addicts? Because it was truly their calling, and not because the internet romanticized it? This is Comparison Trap 2.0. It's no longer simple jealousy. It's identity infection. You absorb behaviors unconsciously. You mimic speech patterns, goals, political opinions, music taste, fashion, body language. The feed becomes your invisible religion. And every notification becomes a tiny hit of validation telling you, keep performing. That dopamine loop is dangerous. Because now the reward is not becoming exceptional. The reward is looking exceptional. And there's a massive difference. Real growth is ugly, repetitive, silent, embarrassing. But online success is cinematic, fast cuts, perfect lighting, AI-enhanced faces, motivational captions, luxury backgrounds, curated confidence. The internet turned discipline into entertainment. But true discipline is not aesthetic. True discipline is studying when nobody cares, training when nobody claps, building when nobody watches, repeating boring actions for years without validation. Most people cannot survive that silence anymore. Because silence forces confrontation, and confrontation reveals something terrifying. You may not actually know who you are without the feed. That's why people panic when disconnected. Not because they miss information, but because they lose the mirror they built their identity from. Remove the algorithm, and suddenly there's emptiness, an identity vacuum, no trends to copy, no personalities to imitate, no aesthetics to wear like armor. Just you. And for many people, that silence feels unbearable. But that silence is necessary, because your real ambition cannot be heard through constant noise. Original thoughts require boredom, and modern society is terrified of boredom. Every empty second gets filled instantly. Music, videos, scrolling, notifications, podcasts, endless stimulation. But boredom is where individuality returns. A moment your brain stops consuming, it finally starts speaking. That's why you need a digital fast, not for productivity, not for detox trends, for psychological survival. You need moments where no algorithm tells you what matters. No one to impress, no invisible audience, just reality, just observation, just uncomfortable honesty. Sit alone long enough and strange questions begin appearing. Do I actually want this career? Would I still pursue this goal if nobody could see it? What would I do if success couldn't be posted online? Which parts of my personality are authentic? And which parts were manufactured by repetition and exposure? Those questions are violent because they strip away illusion. But illusion is expensive. It costs years, sums. People spend entire lifetimes performing identities they never chose. That's why deleting the social script is one of the most radical acts in modern society. Not deleting social media forever, necessarily, but deleting obedience to it. Refusing to let trends dictate your worth. Refusing to let aesthetics replace substance. Refusing to let public validation become your compass. And once the noise fades, something unexpected happens. You become boring again. Good, because boring is where foundations are built. Not every moment needs to be optimized. Not every hobby needs monetization. Not every skill needs an audience. Some things should remain private, sacred. This is where raw discipline begins. Raw discipline is the ability to continue without applause, to work on a craft that nobody validates yet, to improve quietly, to become dangerous in silence, because the strongest identities are not constructed publicly, they are forged privately, brick by brick, day after day, without spectacle. People keep saying, find your passion. But passion is unreliable. Foundation matters more. Wake up, train your body. Strengthen your mind, learn useful skills, read difficult books, build consistency. Protect your attention span, not because it looks impressive, but because self-respect is built through action. And eventually, after enough silence, enough boredom, enough honesty, your real inclinations begin to emerge. Not trendy ambitions, not algorithmic fantasies, real ones. Maybe slower. Maybe less glamorous, maybe less marketable, but finally yours. That changes everything. Because internally driven people move differently. They don't panic over trends. They don't chase every viral blueprint. They don't need constant validation to continue. Their metrics are internal, peace, competence, integrity, freedom. Not likes, not followers, not aesthetics. The modern world profits from confused people because confused people consume more. But clarity is dangerous. Person who knows exactly why they wake up becomes difficult to manipulate. That's why you must become the architect of your own. Mind audit your life regularly, not digitally, analog with paper, silence. Thought, ask yourself, What actions today actually aligned with my values? What was performance? What was real? What was imitation? What was mine? Because if you never ask those questions, you may wake up one day successful by the internet's standards and completely disconnected from yourself. And that is the darkest failure of all. So burn the blueprint. Silence the noise. Stop haunting someone else's life. Your real ambition is buried underneath years of comparison, performance, and borrowed desire. Dig it out, even if it's terrifying, even if it's lonely, even if nobody understands it at first. Because at the end of your life, you won't regret being unknown. You'll regret never becoming yourself.